Right, so to start kind of the big swing of content in the new year, I know I've gotten out a few videos already this year, but this is going to be the first big video of the year. And I know there's a lot of people, and I've seen videos floating around of what are the best comics to kind of jump into as a new reader. What things do people recommend for new people that want to get into comic books but don't know where to start? And my the best piece of advice I can give anyone for that is go into your local comic book shop. Go into your local comic book shop. Find out where your local comic book shop is, or where your closest one is, and just ask whoever's in there, and just take a look at the shelf. Just look at what is on the shelf, if there's any new number ones coming out, or look at who are your favorite characters in the movies, even because the thing of going to a shop or going to a comic shop and looking at the shelf, you will find more than just your Marvel and your DC. You will find, Dark Horse, Image, Boom. So you'll find not only your Supermans, your Batmans, your Spider-Mans, your Iron Mans, you'll find there's a Transformers comic series, there's a Ninja Turtles comic series, there's Ghostbusters, there's stuff I've never even heard of, and then there's all this other independent stuff. I'm not a big independent reader. That's a space that I want to kind of explore more this year, given the opportunity to. But so in this video, I won't be recommending a lot of independent stuff. But what I will be recommending, from stuff that I've read and stuff from my own personal library, I'll be recommending stuff that I'll be recommending a couple of recent current runs. I'll be recommending some stuff from Marvel, some stuff from DC, and one other little interesting one put in there for to add a little bit of variety to it as well. So I think if you don't live near a comic shop, or if you're worried about going to a comic shop for whatever reason, and you want a solid place to start, I think the best thing that you can do is look outside of continuity. And what I mean by that is things that are not in... you either look at a mini-series, so something that's not a big commitment, or you look at something like the Ultimate Universe that's going on at Marvel right now. And the best thing that I can recommend from the current Ultimate Universe right now is Ultimate Spider-Man. I think all of the Ultimate books coming out at the moment are pretty good. Ultimate Spider-Man, I think, is the most recommendable and the most generally accepted to be the best of the lot. In my opinion, I prefer Black Panther, but I think it is much easier to get into Ultimate Spider-Man. What I will say with the Ultimate Universe is, if you're reading one book, it might be a good idea to be reading them all. I'm reading Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Black Panther, and the Ultimates, and I'll be picking up that new Ultimate Wolverine book that comes out. I think it came out today, the day of filming this video, so I'll be picking that up next time I'm at my comic shop. But I think Ultimate Spider-Man's the most recommendable of all of them. It's completely out of continuity. You don't need to know anything that happened before this, but before issue 1 starts. I think all 12 issues are collected in trade paperback. So if you want to find the if you want to get the whole run, you don't really want to go issue by issue, or you don't really want to, or you don't want to like have gaps anywhere, then it's 2 trades and then you're up to date basically. I just think it's a really fun book anyways, but like I said, anything with the Ultimate name on it, Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Black Panther, Ultimate X-Men, and soon to be Ultimate Wolverine, I don't think there's any losing with any of those books. They're all pretty good. I would say Ultimates is probably my least favourite of them, but it's still a very good book. If you want just a small Elseworlds or outside of continuity book that is finished, that like you can get the full story in a collected edition, I would go with Wolverine Old Man Logan. I think this is the best kind of outside of continuity storyline. Even though this did take place in the middle of a Wolverine run, so this isn't like Old Man Logan issues 1 through 10. It's Wolverine issues 66, 72, and giant size Old Man Logan. But that is outside of the point. If you buy the trade of this, you're just getting the story anyway, and you don't really need to be bogged down by what issues are which. And that's kind of my favourite thing. These, in general, these Ultimate Graphic Novels collection, Marvels, they do these. I think Eagle Moss used to do the DC ones, and then Eagle Moss lost all of its money and went under. So those you can't get anymore outside of if you go looking in comic shops or go looking in Amazon and stuff. I don't really recommend using Amazon for stuff like that. But I think Wolverine Old Man Logan is the best way to go. I would have mentioned 1602, but all of the recent stuff to do with Neil Gaiman coming out, I don't feel good recommending something written by Neil Gaiman at this point until we know, and it's looking like he's guilty of the stuff that he's guilty of the allegations. I don't want to recommend Neil Gaiman stuff until knowing whether or not the stuff that's come out is true. There's a weird thing with separating the art from the artist, and it's something that you have to get behind in any kind of media. I was going to talk about Astonishing X-Men here as well, but all of the stuff that came out about Joss Whedon a couple of years ago, it leaves a sour taste in the mouth, and you have to kind of weigh up, do you want to be putting out there this stuff is great, read it, and then oh no, the behind the scenes stuff, and I don't feel good doing that in a video like this. So I've tried to be strategic as well with that, recommending stuff that I know is written by if at best being written by good people, at worst being written by uncontroversial people, um, people that aren't like having, you know, you know, stuff like that. But out, let's get away from that. If you're looking for stuff in continuity, I think the best thing to do is start with a big event. Most big events have a lot of back reading to do with them anyways, but I would worry about like the tie-ins. I would worry about what's going on in other people's books after. But the reason why I recommend going into a big event first or early is because you get so many different characters, you get so many different voices, and you get to pick out, oh, I really like this character that appeared in this. I really like what this character is doing. I want to follow them more. And then you can kind of branch out and go, oh, I really like Spider-Man, how he's portrayed in this. I'm going to go read Spider-Man. I really like Captain America, how he's portrayed in this. I'm going to go read Captain America. You know, and I think that's that's the best way to like jump into a comic series or to jump into the medium in general. And what I think is the best event to get you excited about comics and to get you interested in the medium is Civil War. Do I think it's the best event? No. Do I think it's got its flaws, it's got its problems, and it doesn't portray Iron Man in the best way. But what I will say is that this is a point in Marvel which doesn't really have much to do with anything that came before or since. It's first of all, the cast in this is huge. It's a massive cast of characters, so you're getting a whole load of different characters that you can get the feel and the voice for, and then be like, oh, I like them. I'll go see what they're about. Is there any books about Cable? Is there any books about Cloak and Dagger? Is there any, you know, you're getting so much you're getting so many different characters in this. Not just like the main big ones, but you're also getting like Punisher. You're getting, like I said, Cloak and Dagger, Goliath, characters like that. So it's not just like your Captain Americas and your Iron Mans and your Spider-Mans. This is like a huge ensemble cast. And not only is it beautiful, but it's like you don't need to do a huge amount of... You don't need to know a huge amount of context, because everything you need to know about these characters and why they're fighting each other and why they end up on the sides that they end up on, everything to do with that is in the book. And if you want to go out of your way to read what happens to Captain America afterwards, you can do. But you don't need to. It ends in its own way, and yes, some stuff that's important happens in tie-ins, but you don't need all of that. And I think if you are getting into comic books, this is going to get you excited about it, because it's like non-stop action as well, and it's huge. It's a big, massive event that, you know, a lot of books around this time did that, and I don't... Secret Invasion needs like context around it. You need to have context around Secret Invasion, and ideally you might even need this for Secret Invasion, or to get what Secret Invasion is. Siege is much the same as well. You need Siege to get what's going on in or you need Civil War to get why Siege is so big, or why the characters are where they are in Siege. I want to take a minute to go away from Marvel and to talk about some other comic book distribution houses as well. And I think Transformers actually, I think, has some of the best comic books that no one really talks about. I think my favourite, or I think the best place to start with Transformers comics, you could go and check out the new Skybound stuff, but I think Regeneration 1 is actually the best place to start. You don't really need the context of Gen 1, of all the Generation 1 comics that came before it, all the Marvel stuff, essentially. You don't need that context. All you really need is, here's the book. There is some stuff that happened towards the end of Gen 1. As I was saying, Regeneration 1 doesn't need too much of the context of what came before. It's really its own story, to be honest. And everything that happens in it, and to be completely honest, it's been a while since I read Regeneration 1. But from my recollection, nothing in this is really stuff that you... And none of this carries over into the rest of the IDW stuff. So if you just want something that's kind of on its own, that does get finished, that has a definitive ending, and isn't a huge commitment either, because a lot of the IDW stuff, the Marvel series, the Marvel Generation 1 series, was huge as well. It's a massive run of comics. So this is just putting an end point on the Generation 1 stuff. And you don't need all of that you don't need any of that to get what's going on in this, and you don't need to continue on after it if you're not picking up what this is putting down. But this is great in and of itself anyway. Where it comes from DC, where I think the best place to start with DC is Batman Hush. You could go with this, or you could go with A Long Halloween. I think Batman Hush is a little bit better. Not only is it getting a sequel in the coming months, but also this is a really big Batman story with all of the main players that you would expect from not only the Bat family, but his rogues gallery as well. You're not... Pretty much everything quintessentially Batman is in this. You even get a big knockdown, drag-out fight between Batman and Superman. So everything you want from a Batman book is in this, and everything you come to expect from what Batman is today is in this. I wouldn't recommend starting with The Dark Knight Returns, because that is essentially, I think you need to know what kind of character young Batman is to understand why an older Batman would do what he does in The Dark Knight Returns. Also, I think it's a better idea to go watch the part 1, part 2, the animated movies than reading Dark Knight Returns. That's just my opinion anyways. If you want to go read The Dark Knight Returns, go read it. But it is, like, it feels like a book of that time. And I don't like recommending anything that was written before 1980. Because because anything from the 70s, anything from the 60s has a vibe to it. And it reads very weirdly through a modern lens, or through a 2020s lens, even a 2010s lens, where it comes from recommending modern or like current DC stuff. DC recently did its like All In thing, and I haven't actually read anything from All In outside of Black Lightning. Black Lightning is too niche a character to recommend as like your first foray into DC Comics. What I would recommend is going with the big boy himself, Superman. Not only is there a new movie coming out later on this year, which is going to look a lot more like how Superman is in this than what he was like in The Man of Steel, which is not Superman in any way. This is great for getting the vibe of what that new movie is going to be putting down. Not only that, it's just a great, beautiful looking book as well. I think quintessentially everything Superman should be is in this series. It is quite a way in. I think it's coming up to its 22nd issue, but you should be able to find the first like 15 to 20 issues in trade if they haven't been put in trade already. There should be at least a couple. The first 2 trades of Superman should be out anyways at the moment, and it's like and Superman's probably going to be going on for a while. It's if you want to sink your teeth into a big series that you know is going to be important, is going to feature other characters from the DC universe, and also will be like a big commitment as well in terms of like just stacking out your collection of comics. Superman's the way to go. Obviously the new Justice League book is newer and fresher, and there's less issues to catch up on with that. I don't want to recommend the current Batman run because it's 163 issues in. And, you know, recommending to like, oh, start at issue 150. I don't personally like doing that. If you're comfortable with doing that, then great. I don't personally love doing that. But going back to Marvel, I've got 2 more books left, and this next one was actually my first foray into collecting comics, my first foray into comic book reading as a hobby, and now as like a kind of way of life, essentially. I wouldn't be the person I am today without this next book that I'm going to talk about, and it is The Amazing Spider-Man Coming Home. As much as I'm not a huge fan of Spider-Man now, at least main universe Spider-Man, I don't think he's had a great book in nearly a decade, or in over a decade. This originally was from 2002. Actually, I think this was from the year 2000, because after this book, this collects issues 30 to 35, and 36 is the 9/11 issue. So this is either 2000 or 2001. But this is Spider-Man stripped back. Basically none of his supporting cast, none of the stuff that you've kind of come to think of as quintessentially Spider-Man now. This is way before Miles. This is way before multiversal shit. I think actually the idea of this introduces the idea of totems. This introduces the idea of, you know, is Spider-Man, was Spider-Man like an accident, or was it kind of fate? Was Peter Parker Spider-Man before the spider even bit him? Kind of thing. And it's a villain that no one knows, but a villain that should have been put in the movies by now. And weirdly enough, this is the story that introduces Ezekiel, who is the guy from Madame Web. And he is introduced and dies in this. Sorry for the spoilers, but I've talked about Ezekiel and that character so many times because I'm like the only fan of Ezekiel. And yeah, this book is something special. It got me into reading comic books. It got me to be a fan of Spider-Man. And even now, I don't love the current books. I love Ultimate Spider-Man, but I don't love what's going on with Spider-Man in the main universe right now. But I'm still a massive fan of the character. And this is what kind of got me there. And because it is so much of the just back to basics, kind of no Mary Jane, no like love interest. This is just half of this book is just it's just the hero fighting the villain. 3 issues of this is just action sequence. And if that's something that tickles your fancy, like it does me, then, you know, this is the way to go. I think that's a perfect starting off point because it was my starting off point. And what I think is the quintessential Marvel miniseries is Kurt Busiek's and Alex Ross's Marvels. The reason why I would recommend this as your first, like, as your foray into collecting comic books is this book will show you how beautiful a comic book series or a comic book in general can look. Like, we look at pages like this. We look at pages like this, and that is the book. The story is nothing great, the story isn't the point of this. The point is the artwork, and the point is just how this is the Marvel Universe from the eyes of one of the people on the ground. This is from the eyes of a news reporter that I think used to work for the it's through the eyes of a photographer that used to work for the Daily Bugle that is just watching these seminal moments from the 60s and 70s through the lens of like a normal civilian. So it's someone seeing the coming of Galactus, someone seeing the forming of the Avengers, someone seeing the death of Gwen Stacy from just the eyes of like the ground level, like someone looking at it as a civilian. And it's a beautiful book. And I think this is the best way. This is comic books at its best, and this is comic books at its most beautiful. I think Kingdom Come on the DC side, because that's another one drawn by or painted by Alex Ross, and it's another one that is gorgeous to look at. I think that book is more of a Debbie Downer. This book is more hopeful and optimistic, and it's more bright and colourful as well. But yeah, the Marvels is probably what I would say is, if you want something that is more of like a piece of art rather than anything else, if you're a bit more like snooty, I would say that the Marvels is the best thing to jump into as a comic book reader. Alex Ross does more covers now. He doesn't do art for a main series because it just takes so long to do those pages. And even then, this is like a 4-issue miniseries. Each issue is way longer than a regular comic book would be. But it's one of the best things Marvel has ever put out, in my opinion anyway. So yeah, I will... Hopefully this kind of gave you more of an insight into how I would... if I was giving advice to myself, if I was completely new to comic book collecting in general, these are the books that I would say, go out and get these and you'll be on your way, essentially. I don't think I jumped in to collecting comic books, like collecting the floppies. I don't think I went into that in the best way. I started with Secret Wars, the 2015 Secret Wars, which was the like culmination of almost a decade of Jonathan Hickman putting stuff together and like sewing things into place. I don't think that was the best jumping on point for myself, but I love that book still going forward, and I wouldn't recommend anyone read that book without any prior context or any prior knowledge of what's happening in the Marvel Universe leading up to it. However, when that movie comes out, I would definitely track down Secret Wars, the comic, and not the original Secret Wars, not Secret Wars 2. Go track down Secret Wars 2015. It's a gorgeous book, and it's, one of my favourites, and probably to this day my favourite Fantastic Four story. So yeah, that is all of my recommendations for if you want to start reading comic books. Here is some good jumping off points for reading comic books. I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.